Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast. Here is Munir El Azouzi from easymedicaldevice.com. And today we will have a guest that will help us to understand what is intended purpose, how to write that, and to not make mistakes about it. Because we need the intended purpose when we are creating our instruction for use or where we are creating our technical documentation. But sometimes we can make some mistakes about that, and we'll try to help you to not do that. Okay, so we have here with me Cesare Magri. He is the co-founder of Beyond Clinical, and he will help us really to understand how to build our intended purpose. So welcome, Cesare, to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast.
Thank you, Munir. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So great. So Cesare, so as usual, can you make an introduction of yourself, and then we can go to the topic.
Yes, so a couple of words. So I'm the co-founder of Beyond Clinical together with Stefan Bolleininger. Actually, I'm a physicist and I have a PhD in informatics, and I've been working as a biostatistician for several years in neuroscience. Since 2013, I'm working in the medical device technology sector, and I've been writing clinical evaluation, which today is my full-time occupation.
So you mentioned Stefan Bolleininger because Stefan is also we had a lot of time Stefan on the podcast, and his company is Beyond Quality, and now you are creating Beyond Clinical.
Exactly.
Which is a great thing. Okay, so we can talk about that later, just to explain exactly what you are providing. But I think let's go to the topic with the intended purpose. So Cesare, I wanted that you really help the audience to really first understand intended purpose. So do we have a definition or something that is existing that can really make it clear for people what is intended purpose?
So I like to define the intended purpose as the description of the medical problem that you want to address with your medical device. So another way to look at it is also to think of the leaflet that you find in the boxes of the medicines, where you have a description of which patients should take the medicine, when, how much, and all the side effects. That's a description of the medical product and to which you want to bring a solution through your medical device. So when writing an intended purpose, try to take the view of a doctor that has a problem and that want to address this problem and is looking for a solution for it.
So is there some confusion that people are doing now with intended purpose, maybe when we are trying to create that?
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, the intended purpose is totally neglected. I think it's something that often manufacturers just draft in a couple of minutes, or very briefly, they just write a sentence saying that their product is cool and that's it. And they copy and paste it everywhere, but that's not the goal of this piece of information. And the important thing to think about is this is not just a small part of the documentation. This is the core from which your documentation should start from. So it's the description that is gonna influence many processes in your technical documentation and in your clinical evaluation. So it's really worth putting some effort in it. And often this is not done, and it really can then lead to problem afterwards.
Okay, so we have sometimes some also issues when we are talking about some vocabulary. So we are talking about intended purpose. We are also talking about intended use, indication, all those terms. Does all this means the same thing?
So the MDR speak about purpose. Often it speaks also about the intended use. The way we structure it is that intended purpose is the general description of the purpose of your device, and the intended use is a part of this intended purpose. So it's the description of how you are meant to use the device. Often the term intended use is also used to describe the whole thing. This distinction between the two terms is not always clear, but if one wants to be 100% precise, one should think that this intended use is just one piece of it, and there are essentially 5 pieces of the intended purpose that one has to take into account, and the intended use is one of them.
I worked also on the pharma industry, and we were talking about indication of use or this kind of thing. Is it a parallel vocabulary, or it's completely different?
No, it's a parallel vocabulary, and so one should also have indications, medical indications in the intended purpose. And as I said, often there are like small hints in within sentences in the intended purposes that the manufacturers prepare, but it's actually really worth also structuring the intended purpose. Also, that's something that is not done very commonly. Usually you see the intended purpose as a small paragraph, and everything is condensed together in sentences, but you can really structure it into chapters and into subsections and make each point very clear. And this is not just useful for the person reading it, it's also useful for those who are preparing it to clarify and certain aspects, and then they will be more efficient when trying to explain or to validate certain aspects of the products. That's really important. So really my suggestion is always try to split it up and follow a sequence of points and try to order it very well.
So what are, maybe you can tell about your experience regarding that, but what are the main issues or problems that you have find or you encountered when we are talking about intended purpose? Is there something that is common, that is existing?
So I mostly work with clinical evaluation, and for me the main problem is that if the intended purpose is not clear, then a reviewer of a clinical evaluation might not understand it. And when reviewers don't understand things, they tend to become suspicious, and then they tend to ask for more. So if they don't understand whether a claim is clinically relevant or not for your device, then the temptation for the reviewer is to say, okay, show me the data for it. And actually, what you wanted to say is that, well, this claim is not really so much relevant for my product, but it's in there, and once it's in there, badly explained, it might raise like an avalanche of comment, and this should be avoided. But I mean, like having a clear intended purpose can help also with, for example, the risk analysis, because you have things structured down, and you can say, okay, this part of my description could lead to risk, for example, for my product. And finally, also for marketing. I mean, if you can, it's like if you can explain well what your device does for which type of patient, for which user, then it's gonna be easier also to explain it to the customer. And what I often experience is that, like, a lot of information is by the clients is like in the background. So they, like, everyone in the company works on the same subject, and they go like, for them it's obvious. So they think you go like, well, the user should be a doctor, and they say obviously it should be a doctor. For them it's like the most trivial thing, but for someone external, that's not maybe so obvious. And the point is to make it very clear and very obvious, because someone who is reviewing the clinical evaluation, he might not have this background. So he's probably trying also to teach himself something about the field, and he has to do the work. If you do this work for him, he's going to be very grateful first, and second, he's going to understand better and be better able to understand why you built a clinical evaluation a certain way.
Yeah, and one also other mistake that I see is the fact that people are writing a certain text in the technical documentation, then they are writing some different vocabularies in the instruction for use, then another information in the clinical evaluation, etc., etc. So this consistency is also important for good document practices and for not having any mistake with the reviewers.
Yes, and the intended purpose that you have in your CEP, clinical evaluation plan, CER, it has to be exactly identical to the intended purpose that you have in the instruction for use. Otherwise, it is a fail, let's say, for the clinical evaluation, actually. It's something that one needs to prove in the clinical evaluation.
Yeah, and notified bodies are really looking at that because it's mainly what are the claims that you are saying about your device, and you have them to back up your claims with some clinical evidence.
Yes, and that's also easy to check. You just have to compare, and you see immediately if things are not identical, and if they don't match, they might start asking.
So what is your advice when you are regarding the creation of intended purpose? Do you need some different teams, or do you need some, or just a regulatory affairs person is sufficient to do that? What is your kind of structure in terms of who is on the team should think with you about this intended purpose?
So I think that the person that is best suited actually for writing the intended purpose is like a product manager, because he already has this customer view, this doctor view, because they're used to speak to them. But I mean, it definitely has to be reviewed internally with also, or with doctors or so on, just to ensure that the nomenclature is also commonly used, because you might describe the same disease or medical problem with different words, and maybe you're not using the most common words, and that internally things are consistent, and not that you are writing like a claim and nobody knows that actually you are claiming something, and then the developer just come out and say, actually, we're not doing that, pay attention. Okay. So it's very important to review it internally, and it's really important to devote a bit of time to this step, because it's really, really important. I cannot stress it enough.
Yeah, so some of the mistakes I also see is the fact that people are putting some claims that are not really true, but which are changing the classification of the device from a bigger classification, or also from a medical device to a drug, because there are some substances inside that can be maybe considered as a drug. So I think it's also important to stress regarding that, to say, be careful of what you are writing, because it can still be a medical device, but it's now higher class, or it can not be a medical device anymore just because you added this thing. So is Absolutely. It something that you already seen?
Definitely, we have that constantly. So it's like really, we have this section in which we really try to structure the claims, and really depending of how you formulate this claim, you may end up in a class or in the next class. And sometimes you see that like there is a overexcited product manager that says, oh, he would like to sell the product more, and he formulates these very marketing sentences which actually don't really truly reflect the product, and the product is actually smaller, and he doesn't realize that by doing so, especially with the MDR and with the medtech revision 4, so one really runs into the risk of having to collect huge amount of clinical data, for example, just to support this claim. And we always try to review this claim, discuss them with the client, and like clean them so that they really reflect 100% the product, and then they don't put us at risk of failing with the clinical evaluation. This is
I really like the what you said, to clean the claims. So it's really great. So to show that, yeah, you have really to look at them, and to choose really carefully your words.
Really careful words. I mean, I wanted to speak about it later, but I mean, the claim part is also the part where you can try to be extremely clear. You can also, sometimes people think that it's useless, but you can have a section which is called non-clinical claims, where you put everything that is like a technical claim. So and since you split it very clearly, the reviewer won't have problems understanding that, okay, handling, storing patient data for you, it's not something clinical, but it's just something that your device does, that you want to have on a flyer, but you don't have to provide like clinical evidence for it. It's going to be very clear. And
so let's now go to your methods, because when we discussed to prepare this episode, you told me that you have a 5 steps method to build your intended purpose. So let's share that with our audience today, so that they are ready to prepare that, or to really understand how they should build their intended purpose. So can we start with step 1?
Yes, step 1 is always the description of the patient. So essentially 99.9% of medical devices, they the only thing that they have for sure, it's a patient, unless they are an accessory to a medical device. So maybe the patient is not so clearly defined. All other medical devices, they have a patient definition. And in the patient description, the first thing that you have to do is to think of the demographics. So don't think of the diseases of or the medical part, just describe your device in terms of demographics. So typically, the first point is age. So with many devices, you want to exclude, for example, children, because your device is not tested with children, and it's a very special category. You might think of specifying gender, the weight of the patient.
If the woman is pregnant, or if it's if there is some kind of special condition, I think for those people.
Yeah, pregnancies is usually entered under contraindication if you want to exclude it. But here it's really, so you might say, okay, our product is meant for adults, and you can find adult in different way. It could be age, it could be weight, and both male and females, and of the race might be important because you're referring to specific type of skins, and your products has only been tested with specific skin conductances, for example. So it's really like the demographic. You have to think, okay, if my patient were totally healthy, what are the characteristics that define it? Okay,
no, I think it's great. And so this is one of the steps that you have to start with. I think it's the first one you have really to start with that to be sure to have the right scope when you are moving forward.
We call it the intended patient population.
So, okay, intended patient population, right.
Then there is the medical side of the patient, that are the medical indications. So you could specify, I don't know whether your device is meant for anybody, for any health state. So even if the patient is healthy, I don't know, it might improve their lifestyle, or if it's meant for people who have certain types of diseases or certain clinical conditions, or mental illnesses, and so on. So that's really the point where you look at the problem, at the medical problem. And here we usually have a sub point which is called contraindication, which is also very, very important, because it's where you remove all the conditions that you don't want to deal with with your product. So
I think this is also important to have those contraindications in terms of clinical, to say that we have not tested that on those people, or we don't recommend to test that because we have no proof that it's working on those people. So having that, I think, is making it clear for everybody that be careful. This is maybe working. I'm not saying it's not working. It's just that I don't have maybe some true data about that.
Exactly, and the idea is also, okay, you specified it very clearly. If someone wants to use the device in any case with a certain type of disease that you didn't specify, well, it's not your responsibility anymore. So you were very clear. So then it's the user responsibility. So in case something happens, you can say, okay, I was extremely clear there, and it's you have used the device off label. So
okay.
That's the idea.
Yeah, we call that off-label. So it means that you used it as you wanted, or you thought that it could work on that way, but it's not something that the manufacturer is recommending.
Exactly, and it's also at the point the manufacturer is also not legally responsible.
Exactly,
in case of something happens, which is something really very important.
But I think I saw also that for clinical evaluations, for PMCF, you have also to collect those off-label use if you are seeing that. So it's also something that even if you are not writing that, you may collect them just to see for which other purpose your device was used, even if it's off-label. So I mean, it's clearly off-label on the PMCF.
Yes. So if you see that it's commonly also used for treating something else, you should note it down and think of whether it's necessary to collect data for that.
Yeah. Okay. So step 3, I think now.
Exactly. Step 3 is the user. So not all medical devices necessarily have users, because it might be like a device which is totally automated, but most of them have. In some cases, one of the user or the only user of the device is also the patient. And it's important to specify it. And it's also important in this section to start distinguishing between when the patient is using the device is the subject of the use of the device, so it's the patient, and when the patient is actually the user. So it has like, it can have this double role, and it's important to think of it as two distinct entities somehow. So we always refer to the user as the person using the device, and the patient as the person on which the device is used.
I think this is also important to mention is when we have your device that is used by a user or a lay person, and because now there is this vocabulary of lay person, there is maybe also some additional test or additional proof that you have to provide in terms of usability. So to say that yes, all the information that I provided on my file or on my information are suitable for this kind of user. So it's why showing which user is really using the device can be critical, just to for the notified body, just to say, okay, it's not a professional that will use that, it's a lay person, a person that is common for that is anybody, if I can say. Okay, are we sure that this person will understand the instruction? Because sometimes we can use maybe some vocabulary that is really too difficult to understand, and it's why this is also important to say this will be also used by this person, so we have to make sure that the vocabulary used on the instruction for use is also understandable by them.
And also that all the usability aspects, they match the type of user that one is intending. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly. So in terms of user, we have also the fact that we can use it with the professional. Is there any, for each category of user, is there any care we have to take related to what we are writing on our instruction for use or intended use to say, or intended purpose, to say that because it will be used by this professional, is normally qualified to do that, so I put less information, and because it is used by a layperson or a user, normal user, we have to put more information. So is there a distinction to do regarding that?
Well, you mean in terms of intended purpose or if instruction for use?
No, intended purpose. In terms of intended purpose, is there something additional that we have to write specifically because it will be used by another person?
Well, so my suggestion is always to be as clear as possible, even if it's meant for doctors with very high degree of specialization. Try to be as clear as possible. It's obviously, if it's a very technical product for people with very strong technical background, there will be some terms that probably are not going to be comprehensible to everybody. But if the idea is always to keep in mind that this piece of information is going to be read by someone who does not have all this technical or medical skill even as the user. So remember, keep in mind, this is going to be read by the reviewer, and was going to review my technical documentation and my clinical evaluation. So try to be as clear as possible. Everyone should understand it. And regarding the fact who should be involved in the preparation of the clinical evaluation, also have someone external reading it. So someone who is not from the company, who is not an expert in the field, can they still understand what is written there, and can they understand from it what the product is meant to do? That's also a very good test.
Okay, so I think it's great for people. Yeah, don't consider only expert, consider also person that are not expert in the field, so that they can help you
and that's why people outside the company, because there is this group thinking sometimes in the company. There is this background knowledge that lies there, and it's obvious for everyone, but it's only obvious in there. And as soon as you are outside, you wonder, what does it actually mean?
Okay, so I think it's common. Have fresh eyes that are looking at that and asking. Sometimes we call it stupid question, but it's a smart question sometimes, because then we say, "Oh, we never thought about that." Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what is the next step then?
The next step, once we define the user, we define how to use the device. So that's the part that's often referred to as intended use. And here you should try to specify the use as well as possible. So where should I use the device in terms of really location? Should I have specific requirements regarding the room? For example, laser devices, you don't want to have mirrors in the room or reflecting surfaces. Is there a specific time of the day or time of the year when the device is meant to be used? And then you start to specify how you should use it with the patient. So the first thing is, for example, the location of use on the body. So is it meant to be used on the hand or on the leg, on the brain? Is it an invasive product? Is it a non-invasive product? How long should you use it? How often are you allowed to use it? You can say, okay, my product, you can use it 25 minutes per day for maximum 2 weeks. Or the more information you have here and clearly described, the better it will help you to understand how you should test your product also. Is the product sterile, non-sterile, single use, reusable? Are you supposed to clean it? And do you need something else to use your product, like specific tools or cleaning materials? So do you have to clean a certain area of the body before using it? With which other devices is your device compatible? And are there specific precautions? So sometimes here people, under precaution of use, they list all the warnings from the instruction for use. I think that that's not necessary. You only have to think about the precautions that are clinically relevant. So if it's if you have a problem that I know is only technical, warnings start a window after storing the patient names, something like that. That's not the kind of precaution that you would like to write here. But if there are specific precautions for the use that one has to take care of, then this is also the place.
So it's great because what you are describing here is really the scope of the device. It's really something that is showing what are the limits, what is exactly inside and what is outside, which then, as I've said, can clarify why we are using it, how we are using it, who should use it, etc. etc. I think it's the main question that we are asking. I mean, we should ask those questions ourselves, and the answer should be on the intended purpose, so that you can be clear on your product.
And note that in the intended purpose, except in some cases where, I mean, you're referring to a specific class of well-known devices, you don't even have to have any mention of the solution that you provide. So up to this step, we didn't say what the device, how the device achieves its goal. It's in the product description. That's in the rest of in the principle of operation. But up to now, you're just describing a problem. There is no solution yet. And you can think of it as a recipe. So you take a specific patient with a specific disease, and this type of user uses the device in a certain way, and then you should achieve a certain claims. Because the fifth point of the intended purpose.
I think it's great. It's something that is attracting people to really know more. I think you are hooking the people now. You say, we have the solution for you. It's if you have that, if you do that, we have the solution for you. If you want to know more, read more after the product description. So it's more hooking the person to that.
So afterwards, once you prepare intended purpose, the next step is usually, so what's your solution to this problem that you described? And that's the principle of operations.
Exactly. So I think it's great. This is really helping a lot. Is it the last step?
The last step is creating the claims. I think this is probably maybe sometimes the most complicated one, the one that really requires combined effort from many people. And what my suggestion here is to break down this section also into different points. So the first one is the performance claims. And I'll say the first is performance and benefit claims. So performance could be like my scalpel can cut 4 millimeter thick cuts in the skin, for example. That would be a performance claim. And the benefit would be this allows to cure a certain type of disease. So try to separate what is like a bit more technical, a clinical but a bit more technical claim, and what is like a generic benefit in terms of improved health and so on, and try to separate them into different sections so that they become very clear. Also, because depending on the device that you're dealing with, you might have to put more effort in showing that your device achieves the performance, because let's say once you show the performance, the benefits are relatively clear. And for some other devices, you might have to put a bit more effort in showing the benefits for instead. So it's really useful to separate also these two parts.
Yeah, I think it's also something that is important when we are starting to deal with the benefit risk elements to see what are the benefits really of your products, and show that the benefits are higher than all the risks that will be defined. And for the claims, do you need also somebody like who has more like a marketing background to use the right vocabulary, to use some magic vocabulary that can make you buy this product?
Not just for that. I mean, the point is that you have to strike a balance. So the more precise you are and the more restrictive you are, the smaller becomes your marketing field. So it's usually there. You also want to speak to the marketing people to see whether you're not being too restrictive and whether you're actually not cutting out a huge Asian population that might allow you to earn millions, and you're just forgetting about it. So there it's really finding this balance between, okay, I want to describe my device properly, and I don't want to take too many risks, and actually I can sell it properly. So that's
So just a story. So regarding that, so I really like those meetings where we are defining claims, or where we are starting to write what will be on the brochure or on IFU, etc. Because we always have some marketing people, and what I really like on the marketing people is they are really creative, they are imaginative, they have some crazy thing that is coming out, and we are always thinking, wow, it's really, it makes us think. But it's really something that I like, is the fact that we are really thinking out of the box and try to really put things there. But as a regulator, we are always here to say, oh guys, you cannot say this, you cannot say that because of this, because
that's
of
true.
And they are coming back with another thinking, another idea, another thought. Can we put this word? Can we put that? So it's always a fight, but it's always really an interesting meeting, because you can see also how they are thinking out of the box, and how it also opens your mind to think also out of the box.
And they are also in contact with the customer, so they also bring the view of the customer, of how the customer understands a certain specification or a certain claim. So it's absolutely fundamental part of creating the intended purpose, I would say.
Yeah, I think diversity in the group is really important. Don't just remove some people that are not thinking like you, because you will lose a lot of opportunities for your products. You have really to bring all the people open, as I've said, out of the box, and get. But always be here as a regulator to say, hey guys, you cannot say this or you can do that because of this and that. I know always we are the bad guys on those meetings, but we are cutting creativity. But at the end, we need to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Cesare, so I think it's clear now. I think we have really the recipe for people to create their intended purpose. And I hope really people like that and will use this strategy. I think you prepared also a document that we can share with people.
Yes.
What is it exactly?
We called it the patient, the clinical footprint. So it's essentially a poster. It's you can download it and print it, and you can paste it in big, and you can like brainstorm with colleagues on for each different part what actually you should enter in an intended purpose. So there is really a space for patient population with the important point that you should remember to consider, and then you can stick post-it to it, and you can do a workshop, and at the end of the workshop with 3, 4 people, 5 people, you have your intended purpose ready, let's say.
Great. So I will put that on the show notes, so people don't forget to download it and use it as a poster, and really use that during your workshops, so that you can really get all the information needed to create your intended purpose. And as we've said, this is really an important process. So don't just create a small sentence quickly on your for 5 minutes and say, oh, here I think it's the intended purpose. It should be also a strategic part of your business, because this is what will increase or decrease the opportunities of your products, the patient population, and all what you can do with the product. So it's really
absolutely, yeah, it's really fundamental.
Okay, so Cesare, so now can we talk more about beyond clinical? Mm-hmm. I'm always thinking of beyond quality, but now it's beyond clinical. So what are you proposing for the medical device community regarding your services?
Well, the two companies are strongly related. Actually, we share offices, so we are really hand in hand. And Beyond Clinical is really newborn in the Beyond family. There is also Beyond Market, actually, from okay. Stefan. And we focus on the clinical part. So we focus on helping with the clinical evaluation, both for medical devices, in vitro diagnostic devices, so CEP, CR, PP, PR, for summary of the documentation. If you want to help us identify the clinical risk for your risk analysis, we can help with the risk assessment. We can help, obviously, with the post-market clinical follow-ups part, so plan, report, evaluating complaints, and obviously we can help with clinical studies, preparing the test plan, executing it, contacting BfArM or an ethics commission, and we can also help with biological evaluation according to the 10993 and the biological evaluation report. So I hope that these services can be useful to many.
Yeah, so yeah, as you have beyond quality on one side, beyond clinical, and there will be maybe beyond something else that will be coming.
I'm sure it's going to be there, yeah.
So yeah, so don't hesitate to call Cesare if you have any question related to this intended purpose or clinical or PMCF for all those activities that he's proposing, so that he can really help you for that. So Cesare, where people can follow up with you?
We are creating a website, but at the moment, the best way is to contact me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So I'm often there. Just send me a message, contact me, ask for connection, and I'll be happy to talk.
Great. So I will put anywhere all those details on the show notes so that people can get that. Don't forget to go also to download the document, the poster that Cesare and his team prepared for you, so you can have really a complete solution for creating your intended purpose. So don't hesitate to contact him if you have any question. Okay, so for the people on the audience, so don't forget to go on the YouTube channel if you want to get more information about medical devices. I'm having a lot of videos there. To subscribe also. Don't forget also to put to click on the small bell so to get notified when there is new videos. Because I'm trying to release a lot of videos to help you. And if you are listening to this podcast and you like it, don't forget also to go on the podcast platform where you are listening to it and just put a small comment just to say that you liked it or that it helped you a lot, because it helps also for others that are looking which podcast to listen to check which one is really helping them a lot. So it can bring more value to the people that are listening. And if you have some colleagues that want to learn more about medical devices, also don't hesitate to share with them the episode, the YouTube channel, or the website, so easymedicaldevice.com. Okay, so Cesare, really thank you for your help. Thank you for all the information that you provided, and I wish you a nice day.
You too. It was a great chat. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.